Hello, Packers fans, wherever you may be. It's time for your January 7th edition of the Pack Attack Cast as we continue to get ready for Bears versus Packers. Very excited for this game, and it seems like the week is both flying by and going very slowly. I'm sure a lot of you Packer fans can experience the same situation. I'm both excited about the game, but it also seems like it's taking forever to get there. But at the same time, there's a small part of me that's like, well, Saturday might be the end. Hopefully not. So every day is precious to me. Um, so we're going to talk about a couple things today. First of all, we're going to go over the injury report that just came across the wire for Wednesday. This is probably the most important injury report for the week because this was a padded practice. The Packers have one padded practice per week during the playoffs. And they took it on Wednesday. Thursday will probably be a standard practice or a walkthrough. And then Friday, they'll be on a plane to Chicago. So this is a very important injury report. And, it's probably going to be the shortest injury report we've seen in a very long time. You look at how many Packers are currently on injured reserve, and we've had an addition today, unfortunately, which we'll talk about in a moment. And you look at the injury report today, and it's actually a relief because it's a relatively short injury report, which tells us that the Packers are as healthy as they can possibly be going into this game on Saturday, except, of course, for the players that are on injured reserve. So I don't think injuries are going to be a key component of this game, win or lose. You could argue, of course, they would do better if Micah Parsons was available or some of the other players like Tucker Kraft. But I'm talking about, are we going to come out of this game saying, oh, well, if so-and-so hadn't been questionable, we would have won the game? I don't think that's going to be a factor this week because the Packers are relatively healthy. After that, I want to continue a discussion we started yesterday about Matt LaFleur's future with the team. We've got some great updates thanks to Justice Mosqueda of Acme Packing Company. So I definitely want to dig into some of the things he talked about. So if you haven't seen his article, please check that out at Acme Company. Just came out today. So definitely check that out. It gives us a lot of insights. And I'm going to go over some of the things Justice talked about, as well as some additional insights of my own about Matt LaFleur's future. But before we do that, let's go ahead and switch over to our injury report. I'll go ahead and put that on our screen, our injury report for Amplify Health. Hopefully, we're going to have more weeks of injury reports, fingers crossed, after this week's game. But let's take a look at this injury report for the Packers. We have Tuesday and Wednesday we'll go over. The Tuesday report dropped really late yesterday. It was after it typically is dropped. Today it was dropped at the more traditional time of 4 Lambeau time, but last night it was significantly later, so I wasn't able to talk about the injury report other than what Matt LaFleur said in his conference call. So let's take a look at this injury report, which again is much shorter than what we've seen the last couple weeks for the Packers for sure. Let's just take a quick scan here for the Packers. This is so much shorter. Usually it's 2 pages of injuries. So let's take a look at this injury report here. Warren Brinson has a foot injury, limited participation Tuesday and Wednesday. Warren Brinson has tended to be a healthy scratch the last couple weeks, but we'll see if he ends up getting into this game. The actives and inactives for this game might be a little different based on the fact that, number one, it's the playoffs. So, for example, they're going to have a third quarterback available, third emergency quarterback, which they haven't typically done in the regular season, but it is the playoffs here. And also with this game, we know the Chicago Bears biggest threat, in my opinion, is their running attack. So they might adjust, adding some more additional defensive linemen than they typically would do for the active roster. So Warren Brinson might be a player that isn't active on Saturday, which we haven't seen in the last couple weeks, just because of that running attack for the Bears. Javon Bullard, this is very important. Limited participation Tuesday and Wednesday. What I'd like to see for Bullard is full participation on Thursday, which would lead to a positive assumption that he will be available for the game. Bullard and Matt LaFleur have both come out and said that he's fine and he should be able to play in this game. So this limited participation might just indicate that he's got some nagging pain or inflammation in that knee, and they want to be cautious that it doesn't get worse before Saturday. So I do expect him to play. Edgerrin Cooper has a shoulder injury, limited participation Tuesday, full participation Friday. So I would say this is just cautionary on the shoulder for Tuesday. Again, that was a walkthrough. So he probably fully participated, but they said if it was a padded practice, for example, he would have been limited. But the fact that he was fully participated in a padded practice today tells me that will be great. And one of the things I want to see in this game against the Bears is we've seen serious problems with getting pressure into the quarterback the last few weeks. I think it's time for Jeff Hafley to get creative and use some linebacker blitzes with Edgerrin Cooper or Quay Walker this coming week. I think this is a element that they need to bring into the defense more as we get into the playoffs. Having a player like Edgerrin Cooper, who has elite speed at the linebacker position, also rush the quarterback to get some pressure would be a big difference maker in this game this week. Matthew Golden, this is very interesting. He's showing up with an Achilles injury. There is a full participation on Tuesday and Wednesday. So I think Matthew Golden will be fine. As we know, the Green Bay Packers are overly conservative about reporting injuries. So the fact that Matthew Golden did participate fully both days leads me to believe this isn't a significant injury. But hopefully the medical staff is taking this very carefully, because Matthew Golden is a key component, not for just this year, but for the long-term future of the wide receiver position. And Achilles injuries are not a good thing for wide receivers, as you can imagine, who get all their speed and power from their legs. But we also don't want this to be a situation where there's a serious Achilles injury that could take up to a year to heal. So we want to see Matthew Golden handled carefully there. So big news today, and I hinted about it earlier, was that Bo Melton has been placed on season-ending injury reserve due to his knee injury from the game last week. Really disappointing that a key special teamer and depth player was lost in kind of a meaningless game. There wasn't really anything we could do to avoid this, because some players had to play in this game. Now, if you had told me maybe we lost Bullard in this game instead of Bo Melton, that would be a much bigger fish to fry. So Bo Melton was in a lot in the game last week because they wanted to avoid serious injuries with other players. Now, it's disappointing because Bo Melton does a lot for this team. He's a core special teamer, and he's a depth piece at corner, although he's primarily played wide receiver outside of special teams. So Bo Melton being out means the Packers have to find another solution for his special team position, which is significant. They also have to think about their depth at corner, which is a thin situation for the Packers. And they also have to look at their wide receiver depth. So having Bo Melton out for the rest of the season really causes the Packers to look at three position groups: special teams, corner, and wide receiver, and find solutions to offset his loss. Now, I think it's not going to be a significant loss for the team. I don't think we're going to win or lose based on whether Bo Melton is available, but it is pretty significant. Nick Nyman is in practice with a pectoral injury. He had limited participation Tuesday and Wednesday. Now, Nick is a great special teamer, and that's why he's been signed by the Packers. So it makes sense for him to be activated off injured reserve to take Bo Melton's slot. But that will really just take care of one of those problems for the staff as far as special teams. So we're going to watch that very carefully. Zach Tom, limited participation both days. Matt LaFleur has come out and said that barring a setback, he expects Zach Tom to be playing in this game. So I think this is really them being very cautious to make sure that Zach Tom will be available on Saturday. Lucas Van Ness, full participation on Tuesday and Wednesday. This is great to see, and hopefully a week off last week helps Lucas Van Ness get his foot to 100%, because we really need Lucas Van Ness both as an edge rusher and also as an interior edge rusher in this game against the Bears. Another way that they can get more pressure on Caleb Williams is to have Lucas Van Ness rush from both the edge and the center of the defensive line. So we're going to watch that very carefully. Hopefully Lucas Van Ness can be a key contributor as we get into the playoffs. Dontavian Wicks, concussion, limited participation both days. He is still in the concussion protocol as far as I know. So we're going to have to watch this very carefully as we get to Thursday's practice and Saturday before the game, if Wicks can be available as a depth piece for this offense. I do think the Packers will have sufficient quality wide receivers available without Wicks, but it would be great to have him as a depth piece for this game. He's also helpful to maybe fill in some reps on special teams as well for Bo Melton. John Williams is out, as we know, limited participation with a back injury. He did not participate on Wednesday. And Malik Willis, limited participation both days. He has a shoulder and a hamstring injury. So they're probably taking Malik Willis very carefully because he is a key component of the Packers' ability to compete against the Bears in the event of an injury to Jordan Love. Now let's look at the Bears injury report. This is equally important, obviously, for the matchup. And ironically, it feels like the Bears are on the bad end of injuries far more than the Packers right now. C.J. Gardner-Johnson has a concussion, did not participate Tuesday or Wednesday. Now, technically, the Bears have an extra day to practice if they choose to do so because they're not traveling. But the fact that Gardner-Johnson did not participate Wednesday or Thursday, if he doesn't participate on Thursday, there's a really good chance that he, as their nickel corner, will be out for this game. And that's really something that will be a big advantage for the Packers because they might have a secret weapon in the slot if Gardner-Johnson is not available to cover the slot. Kyler Gordon, who is another candidate to fill in for Gardner-Johnson, had limited participation Tuesday and Wednesday with a groin injury. So Kyler Gordon would be a big addition for the Bears, but it doesn't feel like he's trending in the right direction. He might end up being questionable for this game. We'll watch that very carefully. Grady Jarrett did not participate on Wednesday. It looks like it was rest, so I think that will be fine for the Bears. Braxton Jones, this is something we have to watch carefully. He might end up coming into this game as a starting tackle. Full participation on Wednesday and Tuesday and Wednesday, so it looks like he's trending on being activated off injured reserve and possibly starting in this game. Braylon Jones, limited participation on Wednesday, so that might be an ankle injury he suffered in practice on Tuesday. We'll have to watch that closely. Nick McLeod, illness, full participation both days. DJ Moore, limited participation both days. So DJ Moore is something we want to watch very carefully because he's always been a player that tends to be dangerous for the Packers. And he will be definitely involved in this passing offense, but it doesn't look like he'll be 100% for the Bears. This is very important. Romeo Odunze, foot injury, limited participation both days. If Odunze does not play in this game, it's going to put further pressure on the other wide receivers to make big plays against the Packers. We're going to watch that very closely. We have Agunaminza, linebacker with a concussion, did not participate. Doesn't look like he'll be available for the Bears. We'll watch that closely. And we have Trapelo with a quadricep injury, limited participation both days. So there might be some trouble with the offensive line for the Bears. We'll have to watch that closely as we get the notes for Thursday for practice. We have Ojanka with a concussion, did not participate both days. That's a depth piece that probably won't be available for the Bears on Saturday. And Jade Walker with an illness, full participation today, so he'll probably be available. So it looks like the Packers are actually on the better end of injuries, which is definitely an exception to what we've seen the last 5 or 6 weeks. So hopefully that will make a difference in the game this week. Now, that's it as far as news and notes. There wasn't other big roster moves or any other big news and notes for the Packers today, except for the piece that, again, Justice Mosqueda at Acme Packing Company wrote this today, really highlighting the fact that the Packers definitely want Matt LaFleur back. And it's more and more appearing to be a question about price for Matt LaFleur. Now, the Packers are, and this is something that Justice didn't talk about in his piece, but I want to emphasize it to those of you that are watching. The Packers are a different animal when it comes to spending money on coaches, okay? We know that there's no salary cap for coaches. A coach could hire, a team could hire Jim Harbaugh, for example, for $50 million tomorrow, and it wouldn't be a big deal because there's no cap for how much you spend on salary cap. That being said, the Packers are a unique organization because they're owned by the community, and they have a tendency to be more conservative about their spending for their coaching because they can't just go to an owner and say, hey, I need $50 million of your money to hire the coach we want. Owner can say, sure, write a check. Not a problem. The Packers are very responsible fiscally because they are owned by the community, and they can't just tap into endless resources that another owned team might have. So historically, they've been a little conservative when it comes to hiring assistant coaches and coaches. Now, the sticking point might be the fact that they don't want to pay LaFleur a lot more than he's currently being paid. We don't know how much that is. It's rumored, and Mosqueda mentioned it in his article, that he's currently being paid less than $10 million per year, which sounds like a lot of money to you and me, but for coaches, that's actually a significant discount over the rest of the market. Now, with the firing of Harbaugh yesterday, Matt LaFleur is actually the sixth longest tenured coach in the NFL, which kind of surprised me. I didn't think it would be that he would be that high on that list. But that tells me that the Packers need to find a way to get to a number they could be happy with. Now, we know some of the numbers that are bandied about across the NFL. For example, we know that the Bears coach is paid about $13 million a year. Now, it would be reasonable to assume the Packers need to get above that number for a long-term extension with Matt LaFleur. Something in the $14 to $15 million range would be a reasonable thing. In addition to that, I would argue that the Packers should send out an olive branch to Jeff Hafley once the season ends and say, hey, we're going to give you a raise if you end up staying. That would make sense. So I do think they'll find a solution. But the long story short is Matt LaFleur is going to be back with an extension, I think, as soon as the season is over. These rumblings about negotiations tell me that the Packers are already talking to Matt LaFleur about an extension, and they don't want to talk about it, obviously, during the playoffs. But whenever the Packers play their last down, I would expect that there's a announcement of an extension within 24 to 48 hours because they don't want uncertainty to be in the situation with Matt LaFleur. They would like to say, hey, Matt, great season, however it ends up. Here's your new contract, and we want to announce this sooner rather than later so the organization has stability as they start to build their team for 2026. So Matt LaFleur will be back. There will be an extension. I'm sure they'll find a way to make the money work. So I think there's a lot of positives going on with the Packers, not only for the rest of this season, but in the future as well. I think Matt LaFleur will get a nice 2 or 3 year extension, so he has a full 3 or 4 years on his contract. And I think the Packers will want to immediately, at the end of the season, whenever that is, work on building up the program for next year. Because the coaching staff and the general management staff is going to have a lot of things to work on in the offseason this year. They can't just spend money because they've spent a lot of money with Micah Parsons with that transaction last year. We're going to have to find ways outside of the draft because they've given up their first round pick the next 2 years. There's going to have to be creativity, development of the current roster to make up for that draft pick that we lost with the Micah Parsons trade, to find ways to get more diamonds in the rough, like a Sorrell, who I think was a huge diamond in the rough, and I think we'll see that next year as he gets more play, that he was one of the players that actually shined in the game against the Vikings. Those are the type of players the Packers need to draft, develop, find off of free agent lists, find off of waiver wires, find off of other teams' practice squads. So setting the foundation with your GM and the coach both getting extensions immediately after the season is a big part of that. So we'll be back tomorrow with the injury report from Thursday, and we're going to starting Thursday, digging into more ways that the Packers can actually win the game on Saturday against the Bears. But we don't have a lot of news and notes today. So we went over the injury report. We went over the updates on Matt LaFleur's potential contract. And tomorrow we'll go over the injury report and start to dive into ways that the Packers can take their success from the first 2 games against the Bears and build it into a successful game plan on Saturday. We have to remember that the Packers were in control of the first game against the Bears pretty much the whole game. And the second game against the Bears, they were in control until that botched onside kick that really turned everything in that game. So there's no reason to believe the Packers can't have a winning plan going into Saturday. We'll talk to you more about that tomorrow. As always, go Pack Go, and we'll see you then.